And now we're live.
We're live.
You can keep talking.
So is it just me, or does Corey look like Steve Jobs with that? Like,
today, I'm here to announce the BHIS iPod. Welcome, everyone. My name's John Strand. I'm here to talk about the newest demo of the iPhone 17. It's the exact same as all the other iPhones.
But without a disk drive.
It has one more button.
Check out this new gesture I made called turning off your phone.
Whoa.
Corey, do you have a turtleneck?
No, I don't have a turtleneck. Sorry.
Well,
my neck provides its own turtle.
We also had the juicy password guidance update that just
yes.
Yeah.
I'm sure John has lots to say about that.
The password better be just don't pick a bad password.
Does that guidance include, by the way, flogging for any website that doesn't allow pasting into the password field?
I think it should. I think that's fair. I think we should set that up. Floggings, any kind of take away the coffee, possibly worse than flogging.
Yeah, at this point, websites should not block pasting, nor should they block any special character. Like, I hate whenever I get to a website that you can only put in like 5 different special characters or 5 different punctuation characters.
Right.
Especially when one of them's not space, because I feel like space is one of the best characters you can put in a password, and it's frequently blocked.
This is has anyone ever played the password game? Is everyone familiar with this site? It's so
I'm
funny.
not sure I'm familiar with it.
You're not?
Everyone go play the password game. It's fun.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Is something bad going to come up if I Google that?
No, I linked it in Discord.
What are we getting into?
I linked it in Discord. It's hilarious. It basically, okay, I'll spoil it for anyone that isn't involved. Basically, it's a password, it's a game, but it's like a joke site where it's like, pick a password, and then it's like, it must be 5 characters. And you're like, okay, there's 5. And it's like, must have a special character. And then it's like, the numbers must add up to 25. And you're like, wait, what? And then it's like, it must include today's Wordle answer. It must include, like, it starts to get like, it gets like progressively more stupid over time. It's like, the password must include 8675309, but backwards, or like it gets hilariously, more quixotic or whatever you want to call it. It gets ridiculous.
My password is nothing but 17 stars.
17, eh?
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to pass NIST's guidelines.
When people crack it, it's either that or star, no password, star. It all depends on how I'm feeling that day.
Nice. If you type your password in Discord, it actually automatically censors it. I'm just kidding. Don't do that.
I screwed up.
Oh my God, you should have. That would have been great. That would have been great.
In the old chat days, I think there was more than a couple of times I accidentally put my password into the chat room that I was talking with at the time. So
yeah, I've done that a few times.
Looking at the right window.
And what I actually started doing was I started making my passwords like things that I would actually type into a chat. So that way, if I accidentally pasted it into a chat, it would not look like a password. It would just look like I said something stupid.
Well, y'all, my passwords are carb-free, so meh.
All your passwords are carb-free. Like, I'm trying to figure out what that would be, Michael. Like, would that be,
Good morning.
Good morning. Hello, all.
Yeah, like something like that, just like a random phrase, or sometimes I'd make it like a command. But so that way it would look like I accidentally pasted a command in as opposed to pasting in a password. Because that happened a few times when I was teaching, actually. Because I'd have trouble with my clipboard between my host machine and my virtual machine that I was using to teach. And so I'd end up like pasting in a password of one of the accounts that I was using for teaching. And I didn't like that happening. So I started making the passwords things that would not look like a password.
Nice.
There are a whole bunch of websites where I can't be bothered. And so I just type in some random password at the time. And every time I go back to the website, I just do the forgot my password link. For the one time in 6 months that I need to use that website or whatever.
I always hate it when I do that because I do something similar, but then they send me my password as a reminder, clear text. It's like,
Well, I mean, then it's good to know that, because that's a
Thank
website
you.
that I never want to deal with ever again.
Thank you, bank that I'm no longer banking with.
Exactly.
Passwords are so 2023. That is such a good take, and it's so true. But also, tech is slow to improve.
That's yeah. So that's right up there with like software defined networking and all that stuff, where they're like, oh, the future will not have passwords. I'm like, you're new here. Welcome. Just remember,
the future will have
gentlemen,
the future will not have passwords, but the present always will.
just remember, the PCI raised the minimum password complexity requirements from 7 characters to 14 characters last year. So,
After you shamed them for how many years?
Oh, dude, how long was that? Was that like
it was a long time.
It was a long
so
freaking
long.
time. And I talk about it all the time. I have people constantly, like, when I was doing that, they're like, dude, you shouldn't mess with them, man. Like, those guys, they're serious. They'll like destroy your career and blackball you. I'm like, what?
Yeah, don't threaten me with a good time.
What is this? Is this like the 80s show The Warriors? John, come out to play. It's like, oh God. The creepy password mafia with baseball bats and weird like makeup is after me. I don't know. All right, are we ready to start this thing off?
I think we're ready.
God, here we go.
Oh,
John, you're a little quiet. Yell louder or move it closer.
We're bringing it up.
Rant louder.
Bring it louder.
Bring louder. Less suck. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Black Hills Information Security, talking about news. My name is John Strand, and I visit here from time to time.
It's been a while.
I swear to God, like if we win that Difference Makers Award that SANS is putting out, 1, we'll all be shocked. But 2, like they're like, so are you going to come and accept the? I'm like, why? I'm going to send Corey, like Corey and Shecky are all here, and then
importantly,
no, dude.
We
Difference
told everyone to
Award
vote
is
for
not
Jerry.
Always send me to pick it up, John.
Difference
Chris
Award.
Breton wanted to go, so I figured like Hal,
Okay.
Chris, me.
Yeah.
We'll bring Jake Williams, Alyssa.
It doesn't say a good difference. It could be bad difference. So that's me.
That's a good point. I
There
didn't
we
think
go.
about that.
There we go. We'll just have everyone go, and it'll be like Blues Brothers at the nice restaurant. It won't go well, I'm sure. I just came off of like traveling and trying to get caught up with my whole life, and I have this thing called Wild West Hackin' Fest coming up. So have I missed much? What did I miss? I feel like Thomas Jefferson coming in at the Hamilton play. So what did I miss, guys?
What did I miss?
Anything? Hal?
Cups.
Yeah, there was a big nothing burger of a Linux disclosure last week, John. You missed that.
Was that remote code execution one?
Yeah. So I mean, people were buzzing about this, like mega vulnerability that's going to be released. The whole like pre-release of information hype was a total clown show. But you know what? That's the world we live in, right? Anyway, so the vulnerability is finally announced on Thursday, and so it's a vulnerability in cups, which of course affects every not only Linux machine in the world, but Macs and BSD and Okay, so first, not installed on many systems by default, right? But okay, let's just assume yes. Let's assume there's billions of machines in the world that have cups installed, but it's not actually just cups by itself. You also have to have this other service installed called cups browsed, which is even less installed than just cups by itself. So okay, fine. So what's the vulnerability, Hal? Let's assume that everything is set up for the vulnerability. Okay, so the vulnerability is that this cups browsed thing has it's actually, so we're chaining together like 4 vulnerabilities here. So the first vulnerability is that this cups browse-d thing allows an external person to register a new printer without authentication. So they can make this printer show up. And as part of that, there's another vulnerability where, as part of the printer definition, you can basically enable a feature that was created for legacy printers. But basically, you put this thing called a PPT file on the computer when you register the printer, and that thing can execute a command. But only if the victim actually prints to this random printer that spontaneously showed up on their machine. Like, so you actually have to coerce them into printing to the evil printer that you register. And, oh, by the way, on like at least I don't know, like Debian-based systems, in some Linux distros, cups doesn't even run its root anymore. I mean, so like it's on those platforms, it's an RCE, but it's an RCE as an unprivileged user, but only if this whole other stream of circumstances comes up. So yes, like in a lab, I could set up a situation to exploit this RCE. I will put out a bounty. I will buy you a burrito if you can actually point to an in the wild compromise that's done as a result of this exploit.
So what you're saying is Linux is insecure and we shouldn't use it.
No, what I'm saying is that Unix printing has been a clown show since the 1970s, and you shouldn't be printing anyway. I mean, like, think about 99% of the Unix machines deployed in the universe, Unix, Linux, Mac, whatever, but like particularly the Unix boxes and the Linux boxes, you never print from those machines. So like, just don't frickin' install this stuff.
So a couple of quick things. Hackchar had a great point and said this will be a good hack the box challenge.
Right.
I think that everybody that does labs that involve exploitation hell is breathing a little bit easier. Because now we have an up-to-date vulnerability. It's like, you remember whenever 08067 was getting really long, and we're like, oh God, we need a really stable vulnerability that we can exploit consistently for my classes. Now we got it. It's Linux, and you can make it happen.
Okay, but just use the latest WordPress vulnerability du jour, or the latest Confluence vulnerability du jour, or the latest Drupal vulnerability du jour. I mean, you don't need to mess around with cups. I mean, and this is like, think about showing this in class. Like, okay, here I am registering, my evil laser 100 kind of thing. Okay, now, could you just print something for me? I mean, what the hell kind of vulnerability is that?
How?
There's a thing that bothers me about this, though. Like that, because you remember back, I mean, it wasn't back in the day. I mean, it's still like that today. Whenever you would install Red Hat, like way, way, way back, it'd be like, what do you want to install? And the vast majority of people, whenever they were choosing their packages through the installation, they would just select everything, right? Yeah, right, and they would just turn that on, because that's the only way that I can see cups getting installed. Like, I have never heard anybody that's like, you know what we need on this Linux server? Cups. Like, it just, that I am literally the first person to ever speak that sentence, and I speak it in jest.
Yeah.
And with all of that being said, if I go to our Lord and Savior Shodan, there are 75,860 Linux systems out there with port 631 cups.
Okay. So 631 UDP. So I don't believe that scan. I really don't.
I thought cups was so
UDP I thought cups did firewall anyway.
I have so many rebuttals to this whole thing.
Here we go.
So, okay, we skipped a bunch of steps because the other interesting thing is this vulnerability was disclosed on breach forums originally. That's where this vulnerability, basically the researcher disclosed this to Cert Vince, and then they somehow leaked it. Like, we just glossed over that. Like, this, there's not any real details about this, about how it happened or why it happened. But basically, I will say there were people monitoring the patches, right? People do this. This is a known thing. They monitor GitHub. They look at common libraries. Cups started patching this on, I think it was Monday or something like that. So like people were already building POCs before the disclosure went public. However, the disclosure went public on Breach Forum sometime on like Tuesday morning. So that's kind of an interesting thing. It's like, how did that happen? Did the researcher disclose it? Did Cert Vince leak it? Did someone hack Cert Vince? Like, I don't know. It's interesting to speculate about. We don't really have any hard details yet, but that is kind of, I think, a unique. And the reason it was so hyped is because, like Hal said, it was like originally estimated to be a 9.9 CVE. That was the original, or CVSS.
What did it finally land at?
I don't know. Probably around an 8 if I had to guess, but lower than that.
Remember, we're talking about all the things that Hal said that this has to, like, there's so many stars that have to align.
Yes, totally. And yeah. However, like my like the next part of my rebuttal is the researcher kind of implies, and it's one of those, yada, yada, yada. But the researcher implies that during the disclosure process, they found a lot more with cups. And a lot more. Basically, they essentially said in the blog post that they would never, ever enable this service on any of their systems ever again.
Because no one would ever.
See my previous comment about printing on Unix. It's been a clown show from a security perspective since the 70s.
But I will say, how we reacted to this for our customers, at least on the anti-SOC side, was we did scan for it. And I will say, now we're getting into the details of the Shodan scan. So if you go on Shodan, you type product:/cups, it actually is looking mainly for cups-enabled web servers.
Well,
so
but if you look on the left-hand side, it'll break it down by ports.
Yes,
and
but
cups is TCP and UDP, and you can query the services to get banner information back.
Cups BrowseD, which is the initiator for this, 631 UDP.
It is. Yes.
The actual vulnerabilities on 631 UDP, and Hal's right that you're not going to get very valid scan results back for that at Shodan scale.
My point is there are 75,000 people that installed this, and I'm willing to bet less than 0.001%, that even seems high, actually needed to have that service enabled.
Yeah. This is one of those things where you might tell a customer, "Hey, your Unix systems are vulnerable," and they say, "What Unix systems?"
Yeah.
That's this. That's what this is. This is a Synology print server TM from 1982 or whatever. You know what I mean? This is
Korea
this is IoT.
Got the most. We're in second with 11,000 systems, but but because this was so hyped, like even me in the whole, like just like hiding.
Yes, the hype was. I'm not disagreeing with. I'm not really disagreeing with any of Hal's points. They were all good points. I'm just saying there's a lot of context. I guess my assumption for our customers was, first of all, is it exposed? Because there are many ways to expose it. There's also, you can expose a web interface. You could put it on a non-standard port. Blah blah blah. Now, none of that stuff is confirmed vulnerable right now. I want to be clear. Only 631 UDP, but clearly, the researcher thinks there's more meat on the bone, so we're just being proactive and saying, if you have anything print-related that's Unix on your environment, I'm telling you about it now, and I'm telling you to firewall it off or just kill it.
Shut it off.
Just kill it. You like Hal said, don't print from Unix.
I am willing to bet that if you look at these systems, these 75,000 systems, there's going to be cups, quote of the day, Echo, Chargen. There's going to be SSH, FTP. Because the people that set up
quote of the day, I need that.
What are we going to need for this server? I don't know, man. Install everything. Just turn it all on. Like, And then what happens?
Paid for those packages.
Inevitably, people that do that, they turn on all the services on these things, and then they get a pen test or a scan. It lights the system up like a Christmas tree, goes down, and then they blame us. They're like, why did you crash my system? Because you have everything turned on.
It hasn't been patched since 1987.
Yeah.
Disco Elite has brought up a great point. Just uninstall cups. Who cares? But that's the point. I don't think the 75,000 people that have this, I don't think they know, one,
correct,
what cups is. Two, they don't know that there's a cups vulnerability.
It's IoT for sure. It's a lot of IoT. You can't just go on your
Why would it be on for IoT?
Yeah, that is my question. Why?
Because
they did an off-the-shelf install for their whatever the hell it is, and
whatever software. Yeah.
Do you think that HP LaserJet number 7000 really hardened their Unix subsystems fully? Like, probably not. Like, I mean, there's a lot of implementations of Unix that aren't user accessible, so to speak. They aren't like, I went and I installed Red Hat. It's more like the manufacturer, the vendor built this IPP based print system. It's called like Secure Fax TM, but this is what it uses under the hood, right?
Yeah. I don't know. Like this sucks because I feel like a lot of us in this industry, I'm of two minds, right? Like whenever I first heard about this, I was super excited. I was like, man, it could be a 9.9. Like if it's literally just any cup service you can just exploit, that gets me excited. And there's a part of me that's like, that's bad though. That's bad. But that's flipping awesome. But I feel bad for all the companies that'll be impacted and have to stay awake patching this
and have to pay you money.
However, we'll be finding this for the next decade. And like everything that Hal just said, it's just like, well, if you have this enabled, you have to enable this, and then they've got to subscribe to the service, and then somebody actually has to print to it. It's like,
yeah, but that's today, John. You should assume in a couple weeks or a month that's going to be different.
That's a safe.
I just really want this to be the initial compromise to a host, just because
just
of all that. Like it was 1 in a million, right? Like
there are many cases.
If anybody does this in the wild, let me know. I'll buy you a burrito.
Come on the show. Yeah.
Until
it wasn't legal. It has to be legal.
Narrator's voice. Next HackerCon, Hal was buying a lot of burritos. I would love that, right?
By the way,
I'll offset the cost because that's awesome. But it's going to be another freaking crowd strike. It's like this Cubs vulnerability brought the whole internet down. And
it's going to be the Morris Worm of the 2020s.
They're going to be like, well, shit, I guess we aren't going to win the Difference Maker Award Best New Podcast now, Hal.
It's an edge. It's super edge. Yeah.
So basically for the mainstream, this cup doesn't hold water.
I would say for the vast majority, I'm not touching it. I'm going to say for the vast majority of people that are listening to this, you're not the people that should be up late at night going, oh, Jesus, did we shut off cups? Oh, dear God. Unless you stumbled onto this podcast, in which case, just what the hell are you doing? Like,
go back to NPR.
Like, this is not the Joe Rogan show. Okay.
Yes. By the way, I agree with Slothboy. The issue wasn't the vulnerability. It was the FUD around the vulnerability.
It was the FUD. But it always has FUD now. It seems like everybody that has these things, they've got to somehow kick it up to like 10. Like they want to have, sparklers and
it was
fireworks.
Mishandled. This was massively mishandled. We don't know exactly how it was mishandled or by who, but an internal communication disclosure leaking to the public about a 9.9 severity CVSS is it's someone messed up. I don't know who or how. Maybe those details will come out in the future, but that is why there was so much FUD. Because if I'm anyone, Hal or John or anyone, and someone says someone just leaked a POC for a 9.9 CVSS on Unix, like, we're listening.
Big.
You have our attention. That's not how it panned out, but that was why it was so much FUD, I think.
Yeah, because like I said, I think there was a plane that was doing like sky art that was talking about it, like, cups not mountain biking and trying to avoid all things technology.
John's like CVE 2024. What the hell?
Aunts and uncles are calling me up. They're like, dude, do you hear about this cups thing? It's like, God,
they turned the John Strand light on. There's a picture of John on the clouds. It's like, save us, John.
Yeah. Although that sign has been going off with the Verizon outage. Like, I don't know if we want to talk about that. It just looks like a standard run-of-the-mill outage.
So they had to patch their cups.
They had to patch their cup system on their server that was running CrowdStrike. It's just a bad day for Verizon. Just so many things going wrong. But yeah,
I don't think there was a news.
Tons of people trying to get a hold of me. They're like,
no, there was a couple outages
by a gas station. Do you know if Verizon was hacked? I'm like, possibly. I don't know. I just don't know. But I do, Corey, I want to talk a little bit about the U.S. Capitol. This massive dark web cyber attack. This feels like a repeat. I feel like this has happened in the last 10 months. I'm not sure.
I mean, this is just someone going back through info stealers and finding a bunch of Congress members, which is terrifying and valid research, but isn't really anything. Saying it was hit by a cyber attack, that's like me saying every time I Google something, I'm hitting Google with the cyber attack. Like,
but I've got to ask, like the company that did release this, Proton. I think they're out of Switzerland. Oh, there they are, right there, Switzerland. And then Constella and Intelligence. They're using this for marketing. And I guess what I'm asking, Corey, is how come we aren't doing this type of ambulance chasing?
Haven't you heard of the Talkin Bout News podcast? Like, John, we're here every week.
That's literally what we do.
Every week I get to say, "Oh, it was Info Stealers again," and then it always is.
By the way, can we talk about our continuous pen testing services?
Yeah. By the way, Flare is great for this.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I like I said, this feels like a repeat. Like I kind of remember, I don't know, somebody will find it who's listening, but I kind of remember like literally within the last 10 months, there was a story that was almost the exact same.
Totally. It's basically marketing, if you think about it, not just for the companies that are doing the research, but basically what I mean by that is the data is there one way or the other. The exposure of the data and pinpointing certain individuals and making that visible and accessible is not the same as the data being there, if that makes sense. It's kind of like the Streisand effect for hacking. That's what this is. That's just someone saying, and if a real threat actor were to do the same thing, if a real threat actor were to make a post on breach forums that said, I went through terabytes of info stealers, here's all the people that work in the Capitol, that would make the news because it makes that data more accessible to, whatever script kiddies.
Well, I mean, as we see in the governor's race in North Carolina, right? Same thing. It's like,
yes, damn it, totally.
These next few weeks are just going to suck.
Yes,
right?
that is a great,
We just need to have a politics, like, should we just do election night? We just do hacking, like talking about news, and we just talk about politics the whole time.
Wow, you want us to burn down?
It'll burn down like everything.
That's a worse idea than the 24-hour pre-show banter.
It's not that
well. Okay, Hal's point wasn't political. It's not political one side or the other. It's basically there was a candidate, had a bunch of sketchy information out there about them. It was out free to find.
Did we cover that story already?
No, not at all. We probably should.
Robson, I can't remember his name, but that article, like,
it's hilarious.
Like,
it's insane.
This is all fake. None of this was made up. It's like you use the same user ID for everything.
And the same email.
It wasn't just the email. It wasn't just the user ID, but phrases. Like he used
and passwords. The passwords were cracked, and it's the same freaking password.
It's like
no
Naked Gun with everything exploding behind him. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. Move along.
Wow, John, we are in different generations because when I think of that, I think of Animal House. It's like everything is fine. We're all fine.
But it's not that far off. I think it's like 4 years difference between those. So no, there.
Don't clip that one.
We just got it. But this I know, like politics
he
aside,
just got hospitalized.
That's a different thing. That's the hot exhaust at a car show. Yeah. To give you the idea of the type of person we're working with here, he said, that car looks cool. Let me grab the hot exhaust.
It's like, Mark, you've been pwned pretty hard. You may want to lay down at a hospital.
I will admit, if you Google his name, at least that's the first news thing that comes up and not all that other stuff. So his PR team's doing great.
What was one of the phrases he had was "gag a maggot," I think. And he used that everywhere, like normal YouTube videos, press releases for his campaign.
Basically, we won't. The article's a little NSFW, but basically,
it is
I'll summarize it for everyone. Basically, here's what happened. A candidate for years who, before his political career, he's in high school, he's in whatever, is going on porn websites, making weird comments, liking certain types of videos, doing things, bad internet things, or at least kind of gross internet things. And then no OPSEC whatsoever, is just posting them with his full real name and full email address. And
for years. For years.
Yeah. And up until recently, I mean, you were making it sound like it happened a long time ago, but some of this stuff was in the last.
Sure, true.
But it started literally years ago. I think like 2015, 2012.
Yes, it started like at least 10 years ago and has continued up until recently. Basically, the person either never realized that you could just search what people post on other websites somehow. But basically, all it took was for someone to go digging a little bit and realize this is the same guy. This is his username on porn websites, that he uses the same exact username. And also, people are calling out in chat as well, being very hypocritical in their beliefs, right? Of like,
and this is why you never tell anybody your Reddit username. This is like key.
Yeah. So
I'm
basically,
taking a
it's
few
just
steps back into Reddit. It's been painful. So I'll talk about
I've heard. I know.
Everybody knows, who's done this kind of investigation, right? People don't start out thinking that, like, I'm going to be a master cyber criminal, or I'm going to run for governor of the state of North Carolina, right? Like in their young freewheeling days, they're not thinking about OPSEC and all of that. And so when they do become a master cyber criminal or run for governor of North Carolina, that has a tendency to come back to haunt them, because it all ties together.
Well, and that
how is there not a firm that like vets these people, or at least says like, "Hey, go delete your porn accounts"? Like, how is that? I don't.
I mean, these are politicians. Like, the internet is a series of tubes, right? Like, this is one of the downsides of the political class not understanding technology, right? They get caught out on crap like this.
There has to be.
They make bad laws. So
I think that there's a lot of narcissistic tendencies as well, right? Like, people tend to, like, there's some people that'll lay in bed and be like, shit, in high school, I can't believe I said that. Like, I'm 47 years old and there's still shit I said in college or high school that makes
yesterday.
Yesterday. Thanks. Thanks. Right. It still makes me cringe. But I think that there's some of these people that are like, you know what, I should run for governor. And the idea of that coming back to haunt them just doesn't calculate at all. It's just not something, that process
is this where we say we're sponsored by Incogni?
No.
No.
We know that those services are all stupid anyway.
They are, but I'm surprised. There definitely is a service to do this, to clean yourself, right? Like, I know there's always been
made up.
Are they made up? No, there has to be. I'm telling you, there has to be some political one where they're like, this is the fixer, right?
This is
beyond. And if there isn't,
what
I need to get a new job.
This is beyond what.
No, not Incogni. I'm talking about like next level
like Black
fixer.
Yeah,
I got
like Israeli firm. Yeah.
Is this cyber hygiene?
I think it is. I think it's shit that should be taught in grade school. Like, hey kids, don't take naked pictures of yourself. And you know what? There's going to be kids that are just going to be in high school. They're going to be like, oh, good advice. I was so close, but they taught me this in school, so now I listen. But I don't know.
I'm so glad MySpace did a purge. I'm gonna tell you that.
I mean, do you want to know? Okay. To bring it full circle, though, do you want to know the most crazy part of all of this is that it probably won't impact the election in any way, shape, or form.
No,
it probably won't matter.
You know what? God bless people. Like, not for the specific case, but if so they're like, yeah, he posted some weird shit online. All right, we move on. That's weird. Now,
it's my party. It says my party next to it.
Weird, right? His stuff's weird. But I do think you're right. It's like, I don't agree with all that stuff, but he's my monkey in my tree. So
I think it should affect
we're just throwing poop at each other, and it's all the same.
I think it should affect people's opinions, but it won't, because that's the world.
I think it actually will have an impact, but we'll see.
Maybe it will. It totally could, if nothing else, because this is kind of a, the thing is, there's not the party, the Republican Party in NC hasn't. They haven't really. They're just like, yeah, this is fine.
Quit. All of them.
I mean, his whole staff bailed. Honestly,
you don't need
the one thing I'm hearing the Republicans complaining about this guy for is his choice of pornography. Like all the rest of it doesn't really matter. But they're hammering him for liking his particular flavor of pornography, which.
Dude, you've worked so many cases over the years. Like, you get so desensitized to people's proclivities in that area, right? And
you don't want to see the whole
shit. At least it
browser history.
Good for you, buddy. Yeah.
I mean, I tell people, if you do, forensics, IR, anything in that big tent, it's like you're going to develop a taxonomy for porn, because
you've got categories. So now that we're on porn, and our episodes that deal with porn tend to do better. So I had a case.
For the difference maker.
I think it was actually, dude. I think it was actually in South or North Carolina, and it was a city. And this lady hired me to do forensics investigation because they had one of the employees that was quote unquote surfing porn while at work. Right? I hate these cases, but at the point of my career, I needed to eat. So I'm working this case, and what this dude was doing was getting past his filtering by going to Wikipedia and doing wiki lookups for certain things like vagina or whatever, right? and I remember sitting with this lady and we're going through the stuff and all their web proxy logs. I'm like, here's all the things that he's going to. And she's like, this is just awful. This has got to be the worst thing you've ever seen. I'm like, oh no. Oh no. And then she asked me a mistake, and I screwed up. It was a young John Strand. I think I was still in my 20s. She made the mistake of asking me the question, what is the worst thing you have ever seen? And I made the mistake of going right into describing that, which I'm not going to describe here.
You goat eater, didn't you?
No, dude, worse than that, dude. I would,
shock sites.
Some of our shit that we've worked on that's illegal cases. 5 minutes later, she's not talking. She's crying on the other side of the phone, and she's like, "How could you work with that?" I'm like, you get used to it after a while. I don't know. But yeah, anytime I see these things come out and people are like, "Oh God, look what this guy was into," I'm like, it's legal and no one dies. So I'm pretty. He gets a gold.
That's only true
50%
of the time.
No, people are trying to now guess. 2 girls? No, not even close. Not even, dude.
Whoa,
Please,
don't take it back to cuffs. Do not take it back to cuffs.
Talk to somebody that's done forensics.
All right, okay.
And ask them that question. What is the worst thing you have ever seen? And then brace yourself, because odds are your head won't even be able to come up with what that is. So
okay,
John,
so
basically, glad you're back.
Let's bring this back a little bit. If I was the developer of a particular porn website, what would be good recommendations for password usage?
Wait, is that a question we got from the audience?
That was a good segue.
That was a good segue.
I'd like to follow a nationally recognized standard for password guidance. What should I use?
I don't even know what story this is. Oh, NIST. Thank God.
NIST.
The opposite of porn.
NIST proposes some of the most nonsensical passwords.
I think that's their motto. That's their motto. So, okay, for those that don't know, does anyone want to summarize this? I feel like Kelly probably knows it the best.
Sure, I would love to. So, NIST has come out with a recommendation about dealing with all of this password nonsense we're dealing with, talking about password hygiene. And they're basically saying, listen, all of these different rules about special characters, numbers, uppercase, lowercase, it's just confusing people. So they actually came up with a list of recommendations for 2 groups of people specifically, a group they call verifiers and a group they call CSPs. And remind me, what does CSP stand for again?
I don't know, but I think it's
crappy
credential service provider.
Already, I'm feeling.
I like how we're in the very beginning of the NIST, and I don't think any of the entities who this applies to know if they're either of these 2 entities.
It's a government document.
Okay, Kelly, when you're done, we're going to go through these because these are bad and dumb.
Go for it, John. We're glad you're back.
All right.
Okay, wait. What is a verifier and what is a CSP? Because I still don't know what that is.
CSPs are trusted entities that assign or register as authenticators to account holders. Don't worry, it doesn't matter.
So what does that mean?
So for
Give me examples of
Azure Active Directory. Think
so stupid.
Google. Think so the people Facebook, the people you sign in with and generate OAuth tokens.
This is
I see. You're saying if I can sign in with blank, that's a CSP.
That's correct.
Okay. So if you work at NIST and you're a part of this and you listen to this podcast, you should feel bad. Okay, let's go through this. Verifiers and CSPs shall. That means you have to do it in government speak. There's no wiggle room. You shall require passwords to be a minimum of 8 characters in length. What? You just failed step 1. Right there, NIST. Like, go back. Apologize to everybody. I want you to do this today. I want you to go back and say, we screwed up, right? We this is the rant that I always give about the NIST Green Book, right? It's eight characters. All right, so that's the requirement. So everything after that, people are going to ignore. NIST comes back and says you should require passwords to be a minimum of 15 characters. It should say verifiers.
That's a wide gulch.
You should say shall require passwords to be a minimum of 15 characters in length.
That's a huge difference. The difference between an 8 and a 15, it should be like what? There's such a big difference between those 2 numbers. for every, from a consumer perspective and from a mathematical perspective.
It's literally a number that you can get your head around versus infinity, or close to it. That's just so dumb. All right, number 2, verifiers and CSPs should permit a maximum password length of at least 64 characters. I can't believe that a bunch of people got around in a room and they're like, "Oh, we need to come up with guidance on what the maximum character length is."
No, that actually is good. I actually like that.
I agree with it, but what the why? Like,
it is weird that it's number 2, and I wonder how many people this screws over.
Honestly. And once again, everything that says should means you can ignore it. Okay. That's
so everything.
When you're reading a request.
No, other than 8 characters, you can ignore everything.
So like the only thing they're saying is password should be 8 characters here. That's it. CSP should accept all printing ASCII characters and the space character.
Why? No, Unicode. Oh, it's they also have. Wait, why is there 2 different callouts for ASCII and Unicode? What?
Because there's some stupid academic like jackass in DC that has done nothing but memorized all of the different NIST standards, who feels they got to throw their weight around, and this is nonsensical. Like, this is.
So wait, bad. What? Why are there 2 different ones for ASCII and Unicode? I'm so confused.
Because there's 2 separate rules, right? Each Unicode point shall be counted as one single character. I might agree with that one. Verifiers and CSP shall not impose other composition rules requiring mixtures of different types. This is a step backwards. Verifiers and CSP shall not require a user to change passwords periodically. However,
so wait, this means I can go back to password. Hell yeah.
This means literally you're going back to the NIST Green Book series. Like, seriously.
Yeah, my password can be password. Right?
Yep.
Well, I don't see anything here about dictionary words. Verifiers.
I'm still using Dutch 56 for my password hashes, so everything's 8 characters or less anyway. So
yeah.
There isn't. So there's nothing in this that says you can't just pick password. Is that right?
Yes.
You don't have to capitalize it.
I love that so much because it means we can just write this whole thing off in that one sentence. We can just say, well, I can choose password.
NIST invites people to submit their comments and guidelines to dig comments at NIST government by October 7th. I'm going to write an email.
We should live stream that.
I would love to just watch you write this email and see how angry you are the whole time. Can we just have that separate webcast?
NIST.
Do you want me to share? Do you want me to share my screen while I write this?
Can we?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm going to share my screen.
Do this at WoW with Hackin' Fest?
You probably could.
No, because it's a day off. Because
can you see my screen?
Hello, my name is John Strand. What are you doing?
Owner.
This is so off. I can pick password. Love John Strand.
Okay. While your outrage is keeping y'all warm here, let's talk about this from Joe and Jane user who live in Florida, who can barely turn their phones on to begin with. Why is this so detrimental to security, this new password guidance?
Because I can pick password. That's seriously the best way to just completely, that's the biggest, that completely cuts it. What's the most common password? Password. Well, that's fine under NIST. That's insane. Anyone can just hack your account then. That's a ridiculous argument.
All right. So I'm sending the email. There you go. So there, it's off. So let's see if NIST gets back to me. All right. So
you should have made it like
should
one of
we
those
just
rubber
log
stamps. So we all send it.
Should we just log
now, since we've got it, we're going to be streaming it to YouTube. I mean, my phone number's in all my classes and stuff too. Ryan, we're going to have to do some fuzzing on that phone number, sir. I should have thought this through, but I was angry.
Okay.
When I
couple of things. Number one, do we think if we password spray NIST that everyone's just using password? And also, genuinely, for NIST corporate, there's no way their domain complexity is 8 characters with no other classifiers, right?
No,
there's no way.
What the hell? Here, just for reference, let me go to the Green Book because I do that. Wait, I've been doing the Green Book thing for 10 years now. So here's the password complexity.
Should we just log into NIST and change it for them? Maybe.
They're running these.
If they're using their own standards, we know they have weak passwords. So.
Well, I mean, doesn't mean you can't pick gobbledygook, yada yada yada, whoop whoop whoop.
Yes, but we know people will fall to the minimum spec you require.
Yeah, somebody
like
there
John said.
will pick the weakest possible.
I'm going to use password 1. Damn it.
That's fine. I will guess that too.
To play devil's advocate for a second, the article down at the bottom says the enemy of good security is the frequency in which we make users change their password. So
it's
fight
not.
on that
it's
one.
people installing cups. Like
No. I will say
so
that's baby with the bathwater. That's like you are literally taking a small thing, which I agree with. If you make users change their passwords seasonally, they're going to pick seasonal passwords. If you make them change it monthly, they're going to pick monthly passwords. All those things are true. But that's like me saying, well, people get in car accidents, so driving is way too dangerous to ever even think about doing. It's like, well, okay, yeah, one thing can be true, and you don't have to completely throw away the whole standard just to make that one thing true. Like, I don't know.
All right, so I've got the password complexity standards from 1985 up, right? And this is what they say for a length of password. And notice they give the maximum lifetime in months is 6, 12, and 21 months. And they're recommending with a 26-character password alphabet, 9 characters. And the 36-character alphabet is 8 characters. And if you look at that first thing, it said shall be 8 characters. And then, everything after that you can ignore.
So you're saying passwords have gotten less secure since 1985?
Only for PCI up until last year, because PCI was 7 characters, was the minimum. So this is their minimum in 1985, and NIST came out and said that the minimum is 8 again. Like, and at least
computational hardware has it changed since?
No, clearly not. But they have this math up here where they talk about L is set for 6 months and 12 months. P is set for 1 in 1 million acceptable probability of guessing a password. R is set at 8.5 guesses per minute. At 8.5
guess rate possible with 300 bond service. Don't tell them about GPUs. Don't tell them about GPUs.
Good God! Like, why am I?
I mean, that's where we're at. We're back there, John.
We're actually worse because now they're removing the requirement to change your password every X number of months.
John, let me ask this question. Who's going to actually read this? Do you really think Apple, Google, all those people are actually going to read this?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Whenever you have people that are like, let's say the state of Florida decides that they want to come up with their ICS security guidance rather than going off of NERC-CIP or anything else like that, they're going to write their own, and somebody is going to sit down and they're going to be like, what's NIST say? And then they're going to pull this down, and then they're going to be like, well, it's 8 characters. Like, this shit keeps on perpetuating, and it's not getting better. Like seriously, if they want to do password complexity requirements, tell people to use a passphrase and make it like 21 characters and then be done with it. Right? Just walk away. Teen Vogue has stronger password complexity requirements than this new one. I'm going off of a rant that I've given in every single class for the past 8 freaking years. Teen Vogue says, use a long password. I think they say 17 characters. And then they tell you to use multi-factor authentication. Teen Vogue has stronger password recommendations than the National Institutes of Standards and freaking Technologies. If we're getting beat by Teen Vogue, we are losing at this point. So, and I just
why is NIST so bad at this, but then has like all these other like crazy standards? Like they literally have a standard for peanut butter, right? Like
what?
Yeah. There's a NIST standard for peanut butter.
Well,
like
I will say, I think John's right on the mark. It's not their specialty. This is not their specialty. Someone has handed NIST a task, and there's some guy, like, it's throwing their weight around. I think that's reading between the lines. That has to be what it is. Because there's other government agencies that are actually doing really good work in this space, and they're just not that agency. I don't know. It's crazy. The joke someone made...
They should just
The joke someone made is super true. They're going to say, next NIST, or this is Lucent Shadow's comment, next NIST will throw out multi-factor auth because some people use SMS.
And once again, Teen Vogue has an article, why 2-factor authentication is so important. How to...
Teen Vogue is the security standard.
But like I said, talking about this, like, these things happen. And like Dornan just said, DOD listens to NIST, right? So this is going to make it into all of the like security standards. And the thing that sucks is if you're sitting down as a DA or a designated accrediting authority or a program accrediting authority, and you try to do something beyond what NIST tells you to do, there's a whole bunch of meetings where they're like, well, this is what NIST recommends. This should be just fine. We fight this constantly where, you know, we just cracked 86% of all the passwords in your organization because they're 8 characters. And then I deal with a customer saying, well, NIST tells us differently. And we've got to get past this. Like, I don't know who's making these recommendations. They clearly aren't doing security at all. And I'll probably have them contact me and be like, well, actually, Mr. Strand, I have a PhD. Stop listening right there. Like, if you try to win an argument with your degree, you've lost, right? But we're going to be dealing with this now. If this gets through, we're going to be dealing with this for the next 20 freaking years. We saw this with a FIPS 140-2 with encryption standards. You just see it constantly in this industry where bad things don't die.
All right, here's what we do. You know how like there's organizations where they're fake bureaus, like we'll say the Better Business Bureau, right? Not really an organization. We make NIST.
Yes.
Everything the same, and then we just start putting I don't know what it'll stand for. I'll ask ChatGPT later. But
it'll do well.
Then we just do the best security standards and try to fake everyone to that. There we go.
I like that. We can do domain squatting. So if someone mistypes NIST, it comes to NIST instead.
Okay, wait. There is a slight correction based on a really good comment that Cetrel made in chat. So it does, beyond the rules that we were looking at in the news article, there are some additional rules that classify, like basically say, you shouldn't, it says, verifiers shall compare the password against a block list that contains commonly used, expected, or compromised passwords. The entire subject, entire password has to be compared. Then you have to pick a different password. So that does prevent me from choosing password.
Cool.
But I can still do
my
password.
Block list will contain all passwords of less than 15 characters. That's my block list.
Hal, you could write a pretty quick regular expression for that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I could bang that out, and
yeah,
give me half an hour. I'll be right there.
Okay, so it isn't as bad as we thought, but I will say,
it's bad.
That is a little detail where the standards organization doesn't provide any context or help on what that standard list of common passwords would be. How common does it have to be to make it on the list?
They're going to take the ROCU list, Corey. They're just going to take ROCU or something like that, where it's going to be password 1234, 123456, 12345678. They're going to try to do some variations of password and some of the other, but it doesn't address at that point company name. It doesn't probably season in year, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of these ideas of what a commonly used password, they evolve over time, and it doesn't address that.
It's still bad, and the reason for anyone that's curious, to kind of add some technical credo to the rant, the reasons why 8 characters are bad for anyone that doesn't necessarily just innately get this. Number one is the mathematical speed at which GPUs can guess passwords, even for slow hashes like bcrypt or whatever. 8-character passwords can't be exhausted if it's bcrypt, but almost any other hashing algorithm can be exhausted within a period of, let's say, a day or 2 days.
Yeah.
So that's bad. The second thing is, with 8 characters, you're getting into the realm of potentially being able to brute force it on a web app, or brute force it on an API, or brute force it
Makes
it's so short. If I can only guess, let's say I can make 12,000 requests a day, which isn't that many compared to GPUs, which could do billions or trillions. But 8,000, if I can do 10,000 a day, I can still exhaust the 8-character key space in a relative, in half a year or a year. And that's too short. With no password rotation, that's way too short. That's like what John was saying about the 1985 standards. But
Corey, you're only allowed to do that with a 300 baud modem. So
yeah, that's right.
That's true.
All your hacking's got to go through that.
That's true.
But no, I did a calculation. So they came up with their password change requirements based on how long it would take the Russians to go through and brute force every possible password combination. So that's
on a modem. On a modem.
Yeah, on a modem, and they doubled it, right? So they said the Russians could do it in 3 months, or 6 months, you got to change your password every 3 months or whatever. The thing is, if you take that 8-character password and their logic and their reasoning for doing 8 characters, and you apply that today, you would have to change your password every half a second. just giving people an idea of the raw computing power that is like kind of computers are different 1985 to today. So, but yeah, I mean, Corey,
so to wrap it all up, in BHIS pen test reports, we'll just put Teen Vogue as the recommended source of information. Instead of NIST. And we're moving on.
Exactly. Do we have another story we want to get to? This one's got me.
I wanted to talk about the AI one. The AI one is interesting.
This one was weird. Okay, go ahead. Take it away.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what that was.
The California one?
No, the hacker plants false memories in ChatGPT one.
I think it's just basically poisoning the LLM.
So the reason it's interesting is because everyone, I think right now, there's a lot of FUD out there about AI and its huge impacts, and like states are banning it, people are banning, like it's, it's going places. But basically, Johann Reberger, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Someone discovered a vulnerability in ChatGPT that allowed attackers to store false information and malicious instructions in a user's long-term memory settings. So it's not really an attack on AI, but it is an attack on the implementation of AI that users actually use. So this is basically exploiting ChatGPT's memory, which isn't like a feature of the LLM itself, but is a feature of the web app that runs ChatGPT, if that makes sense. So you can store information in prompts, and then you could potentially use it like every time you get a query, send it over here or whatever. So
I really don't think this is news.
No?
Whiskey and beer does the exact same thing. False memories.
I like it.
That's what I've heard, at least. I've been told by my friends.
I don't know what you mean.
I have no clear memory of that, Senator.
Sure. I mean, I think it's just, yeah. I mean,
to your point, though, Corey, there is a lot of FUD around AI, and what does a story do, like this, do to the community? Does it increase the FUD? Does it make people more hesitant to use it? Are we starting to cut through some of the BS around AI? What do you think?
I mean, I think it's an actual real attack. Unlike a lot of the FUD, it's a real attack you can perform on people that use ChatGPT.
I think it's interesting because I look at it as a beginning. Like a lot of the stuff when you're looking at AI and LLM and all this stuff, we're looking at new classes of attacks, right? So we can look at it as FUD, we can look at it as InfoSec or cyber beer, we can look at it a number of different things, but I do think that we have to come to grips and start watching these things, because the idea of poisoning or uploading or somehow training an LLM to do things that it wasn't necessarily designed to do is a very real security risk, right? We've seen it at a number of times with Microsoft Tay, is my favorite example.
Yeah, but that's not even what we're dealing with here. This isn't actually a problem with the AI. It's just the web app itself, or the implementation, which is where the weakness is, I think.
But that's the same thing with crypto, right? Like you never attack crypto, even bad crypto. You attack the implementation. So even though it may not be directly within AI, the implementation in a lot of ways is just as bad and just as dangerous for organizations. So it still needs to be something that we need to look into.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm like, this is, in my perspective, a lot of the research we've done in AI has shown AI can be really damaging if someone can get access to the prompts that people are using. And that's what this is. It's literally data exfiltration of people's usage of AI, which is where all the sensitive information is. The AI itself is sanitized. What people put into it is not. So these kinds of attacks are going to, I mean, I think it's real, but anyway.
So, Corey, the recommendations from OpenAI mention turning off memory, so you're not storing what you've typed in there or any sort of information you've inputted. Would you recommend turning off the memory, or do you think that's a excessive control for a prompt?
I think it's always good to wipe memory or your history for everything, always.
I mean, I think that's where you need to give ChatGPT a lot of alcohol, but basically I think it's just the conversation is hardening the AI apps that people actually use. Instead of sowing a bunch of FUD about potential impacts of AI and jobs loss or whatever, it's more about, are your employees using AI? If so, that needs to be treated as an asset to be protected. Whether or not you restrict memory or restrict access to data or whatever, however you implement your AI, like John said, you attack the implementation. So I think every company or person or whatever should think about how they're using AI. If that data is sensitive, they need to have either turn off memory or make sure they're regularly checking to ensure that there's not a bunch of false prompts and memories that they didn't actually put in there.
On the memory subject, because I am a huge ChatGPT user, I think turning it off isn't that big of a deal. The main reason behind that is when you use that memory function, it'll just like bring up questions that you asked in the past or topics that you've actually asked, and then go on. Like I created something like 2 months ago, and then I asked it a question, and it actually told me, he's like, oh, you could actually use that thing you created 2 months ago. Here it is again. Which I did not know it had that ability until I looked it up and found memory. But at the end of the day, I didn't even know it was there, so turning it off wouldn't be that big of a deal.
So, Wade, I want to say welcome to the old man club. I do that a lot. There's times where I'm on the internet looking up something and I come onto a YouTube video and it's like, it opens up with me saying, hello and welcome to another webcast. And it's like, oh God, I clearly solved this problem and did a webcast on it.
I will be revealing what I made at Wild West Hackin' Fest too. So that it's in my.
I feel left out.
Yeah.
I wonder the old people club.
Oh, you're in. You're in.
I don't want to be in the old guy club.
Age is a protected class. We can't even have that.
It's not the age thing. I don't want to be a guy.
You don't have to be. You don't have to be.
Okay.
So
sure.
It's different.
I've never thought of you as one of the guys.
Thank you, Hal. I'm touched by that.
That's
any final articles?
Many different things.
Someone wanted us to talk about Udemy. What's the Udemy drama? Now I'm like someone.
What's going on with Udemy now?
I don't know. I don't know.
There was also the Kia one.
Were they compromised via Verizon? I don't know. I'm just throwing shit at the wall right now.
Wait, your uncle's in the Discord?
Yeah, right.
I don't know. Whoever said something about Udemy, please post the news article.
Did you look at the Kia stuff at all, Corey?
No. What is that?
Here, I'll throw a link. I read up about it, but I will definitely say I'm never an expert, but pretty much there was a way to hack a Kia through its online system and have complete control of the car, and all you needed was its license plate number.
Yeah, I that's kind of a variation.
I mean, that's pretty bad.
It is. But we've seen similar vulnerabilities, it's predominantly through the web interfaces, right? Where you can basically gain access to the APIs. And it basically comes down to, they had a really crappy web application pen test where they're like, well, we ran Burp Pro against it and it looked good. Carry on. They didn't do any business logic error testing or trying to jump over to, because if you test an app, whether it's an API, mobile app, or an actual web app, there's a bunch of different testing that you should be doing. One of the things you should be doing is get multiple accounts set up when you test, and then see if you can jump from one account to another, right? That's basic stuff that you should be testing. And it doesn't even look like that type of testing was done.
No, I mean, it is a web app,
one is way better. We should pivot.
Well, okay, hold on. I do want one thing about the Kia hacking. If you scroll down, Ryan, look at this cyber weapon. Keep going. There's an insane cyber weapon this attacker is using in the video. Oh, you might not see the video.
Scroll faster, Ryan.
The cyber weapon. You're not going to believe this. It's just it's a laptop.
It's a cell phone.
So I think Canada should be banning laptops anytime soon.
So we're going to.
There it is. Look at that. Oh my goodness. That should be illegal.
I heard that.
I heard that guy started the Kia.
What is that? What is that?
I don't know.
I don't know
we need to ban
that. That scares me.
If you cannot import that.
Is that an Apple? Is he using an Apple?
That is a MacBook.
It
looks like a MacBook.
I think we need to get these things and we need to burn them. Like, these things should not be allowed.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
If we burn all MacBook Pros, the internet will be safe.
Joking aside, let's talk about the Udemy thing. Basically, the story with Udemy is, according to a viewer, opt-in LLM ingestion for all lessons. So that's terrifying.
Well, sort of like what LinkedIn just recently did.
Ugh.
Oh, sorry. It's actually opt-out, which means basically Udemy course developers or course, whatever we're going to call them, teachers, I guess,
instructors,
have already been opted in to Gen AI usage of their courses. And that's terrifying.
I I can speak a little. I'm not going to specify any specific institutes or organizations that may be doing this already with their instructor pools, but there are various groups out there talking with people that teach security or do expert decision support or things like that. A lot of Kelly, stop. Go get a cough drop. But they are literally taking instructors. They're taking consulting calls, and they're recording them and they're sending them through LLMs, and then they're basically selling that on the back end to the customers. And there's no money going to the instructors or the experts that created that. And it's kind of weird. It's kind of like that. Like Fat Man Will said, this is already happening. It is. And the thing that's really concerning to me is the speed in which it is happening, where you have a whole group of experts and they're literally just synthesizing all of these experts. They're taking everything that they've said in a class or in a consulting engagement, and then they're distilling it down through an LLM, and then customers can come and ask questions and get answers around that. And I don't know where this is going. I don't know how to fix it. I just know it sucks. It sucks real bad that there's organizations out there that are making lots of money, and the people that actually helped create the content that is fueling those LLMs is really not getting anything for it.
Hey, but John, on an unrelated note, does Antisyphon Training harvest people's data for AI?
Not yet, but we're working on it. That's good business.
And John burns down the community. Actually, so in this whole subject area that we're talking about, the LinkedIn opt-in thing was very instructive, because you'll notice that when they added the button that lets you affirmatively opt out, because you had to go hit the button, there's one class of users that were opted out by default, and that's users in Europe. Right? And so
thank God.
The moral of the story is the European privacy frameworks are actually working, right? The company was afraid enough of getting whacked by the EU that they made different rules for Europe.
Yep.
And so maybe there's a path forward there. But one thing I will tell you is that if the Europeans are opted out by default, you also want to opt out, right? That's just a good rule of thumb to follow. So,
and there's people in here that I think have some. We've gone over, and I apologize to everybody that's listening, but there's a bunch of people that are like, hopefully they have a legal team. They're going to get sued. How does that even look? Because if you're looking at like music, right? If you're looking at ChatGPT, it's just a huge plagiarism engine. And that's all it's doing. It's just plagiarizing music. It's plagiarizing the text that it finds. And now you have people that are taking this and using it to generate LLMs based on what experts are saying in these areas. And I honestly am kind of a bit like jaded on this. I don't think you can stop it. I think like Hal was talking about GDPR and European Union. That's great. But if they don't get somebody from the EU, they're going to get somebody in the United States. They're going to scrape YouTube videos. It's basically going to hit anybody that is an expert that has spent years and years and years. And it's basically an effort to replace that type of expert as quickly and as efficiently as possible without reimbursing them. That being said, we've got to be better. Doran just said experts, right? And ChatGPT and a lot of these AI, they really can't deal with a lot of context and nuance that comes with some of these questions that come up, or classes or teaching. So we just got to be better. But no, I don't have a lot of hope. I think that they're going to siphon up as much data as they can. And it's going to be almost impossible to parse where the output originally came from.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say my couple of reactions. Do we think Udemy allows you to submit AI-generated courses?
I don't think so. I would be willing to bet. Actually, that reminds me, I should probably put something in Antisyphon where we don't allow people to have their classes. But I don't know.
I mean, where I'm going with this is like, we're currently in this AI inflation period where like AI is getting smarter because it's siphoning in more data. What happens when it starts siphoning in the data that it made? Is it going to get progressively dumber at that point? Like, is there going to be like we're getting smarter, and then AI is like, now everything's AI generated, and then it just gets dumber?
Literally described all of academia in every university research department everywhere on the entire planet. Like, you just summed it up perfectly, where they're taking research from other universities, they're just stealing it, and then they're rebranding it on their own. I'm going to say it's nothing terribly new. What's new is the quickness and the speed.
The scale. AI scales very high.
Yeah. It's already happened to AI art. And that is, some of that shit gets weird too when it starts like eating in on itself.
So let me add some thoughts to this. In the United States, when we look at law and regulations, tort law says we have to show harm. Yep. The hard part right now is it's difficult to show harm. Look at how long it took us to show financial consequences from breach attacks and data being lost or stolen. Unfortunately, I'm going to leave on one last note. The California AI bill was vetoed by the governor. And a big piece of that was they wanted to implement a regulatory framework around how AI was being used by the large companies that are in California. It was vetoed primarily because they tried to put in a regulatory framework. So the Wild West continues for artificial intelligence.
Although I will say there were actually two bills related to AI, and I hate the term, that went across the California governor's desk. And yes, he vetoed the one that you described, but there was a second one prohibiting the use of copyrighted material to feed these LLMs. And that one was approved and signed off on by the governor. Now, do I think it's going to make a difference? No. I think it merely adds another cost of doing business to folks like OpenAI, because they're going to continue to scrape copyrighted content and ingest it. And then at some point, they'll have to pay a nominal fine for doing that if anybody notices. But, anyway, so there's stuff happening, but it's happening too slowly. Frankly, I'm betting on this current hype bubble blowing up long before any sort of significantly useful regulation is applied. But believe me, I have lived through multiple AI hype bubbles, and this is just another one, and it's all going to go away before you know it. And it will just become a cocktail party joke.
Dude, I hope you're right. I disagree with you. I don't have your optimism, but I hope to God you're right.
Who replaced Hal with an AI-generated version of Hal?
You on it is, what's the end state? Like, where does that actually end up? And then at the end of the day, where's the money? Or what happens whenever the money dries up? Because this shit ain't cheap. Power perspective.
Right. The money all gets spent on drug-fueled, Christmas parties and office space with, granite floors, just like it was in the .com bubble. And a lot of people lose their life savings. And sorry, right?
We should have a Hal's Doomsday podcast. I would definitely subscribe to that.
Doomsday. That was a positive. He was positive. That's
he
positive.
Was. It's a hype bubble. That's what I heard.
No, money Hal.
I mean,
just all happy Hal.
But it's like AI Doomsday. That was AI Doomsday.
I think John's been a lot angrier on this podcast than I have. I mean, yeah, I was angry about the whole cups nothing burger.
But that makes me
no.
weird.
It's just because Hal's Doomsday vision is so much less angry than John's. Hal's just like, I mean, it was the way that he said it was very like, probably this is how it's going to happen. I kind of believe him. Whereas John, I'm just like, woo, here we go. Let's do this.
Yeah. All right. We've got to wrap this up. You guys, thank you so much for joining. I will see a bunch of you next week, Wild West Hacking Fest. So excited. And we got a bunch of people.
John and I will be doing a Doomsday panel together.
We were doing a Doomsday panel.
That's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, goody.
All right. Bring out the finger. We're out of here.